Welcome to the SLUSH podcast, the only place on the internet where we cover toddler toys to movie reviews and all of the spoilers in between.
All right, you dino ding-dongs. Welcome to another episode of the SLUSH podcast with Matt and Cody. This
Hey,
is number 3 of our Jurassic Park deep dive.
yeah.
What happened to your cover?
Okay, so Darcy McDade gave it to me like this. He was like, "This is old." So it's been like this since I got it, but it looks like it went through the park, and a
It,
dinosaur ate it.
he probably used it to make filters.
Actually, it kind of looks like that. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah,
For anybody that hasn't been here before, because we're starting to develop a bit of an audience, we've done the first episode was leading up until the dig where we were just setting the backdrop of what it looks like in 1980s genetic modified world and
that's
alluding
true.
to what's about to happen. We went deep into character development in the second episode, and now we're getting into the real meat and potatoes of the meat.
We really are. This is like the Jurassic Park part really starting hard, I think, at this point.
Oh, I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't at least, like, I know this puts a date on the podcast, but in our current future time, either I saw a ghost in the background or Cora's moving around.
Yeah, that's Cora. What do you?
Sorry, I need headphones, and I know that there's a pair in here.
There might be some headphones in there. We've got a whole computer thing. You're just
I know,
no. That's an example of Jurassic Park. We're trying to control our environment here, and we have outside chaotic things happening. So it all ties in. But yeah, sorry. Go on, Cody.
But in our current timeline, the new Jurassic Park or Jurassic World Rebirth trailer came out.
Right.
So I think it would be silly not to talk about that a little bit.
I agree. I was thinking that too.
What were your first reactions?
Okay, so my first reactions were, I'll just jump right into the crazy thing, like the mutant part of it. Obviously, you and I have known about this stuff unfolding behind the scenes with the movies, and they've talked with us for a while. So I was like, people seem kind of divided. They're like, this is gonna ruin the movie, or I can't believe they're going in this direction. But I feel like it was always eventually gonna go in that direction, no matter what. But I don't know. I think it looks cool. Like, I'm stoked to see it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, at first I was like, what the shit? Because all I wanted was anacondas with dinosaurs. But the more we think about it, it's funny because we were talking about this on the last podcast. We're like, they must have screwed up a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Like, we were literally talking like, what do they do with the dinosaurs they screw up? Is there just a heap of dino corpses somewhere? So it's exciting that we're gonna get a little bit of that world.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, like, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I get that a lot of people haven't read the novel, and they're probably like, oh, why can't we just have dinosaurs? And it's like, yeah, but they make a point in the first book of saying that for, like, every one dinosaur that works, they have, like, 100 or hundreds that they've wrecked. Who knows what they've done with them, but I just didn't think that they had them on another island. How do you feel about there being another island at this point?
Well, people keep like, I was reading a thing where people were saying, well, really, in Jurassic Park 2, we went like Isla Sorna was like Site B. So maybe this island's actually the original Site A. And I'm
Right.
like, I don't know about that. I'm like, I'm feeling this is a
Site A.
little bit of a cooked situation. I feel like I do feel like it's a bit contrived because originally when they were talking about this, I thought it was like how in Jurassic World, like the dinosaurs got out. And even though it's like 12 dinosaurs, they like started populating around the world. I
Yeah.
thought they were building off of that. I feel like I like this more than that situation. Like it's starting to feel totally removed from Jurassic World.
Yeah, and I think that like in the first Jurassic World, they were going about it the right way, but then we'll get to the sequels of Jurassic World eventually, but it almost seems like it veered off funny. I don't know. And from what I got from this trailer, Like there was a part where they showed the when dinosaurs ruled the Earth banner, and I got the sense of like, does this happen at the same time as the first movie? Because it could, right?
No, I think that's just a nod. It'd
Oh,
be
I
cool.
see.
It would actually be cool if that was like. Honestly, it would be amazing if we just like gave up on
The
on the Chris
world.
Pratt part of the franchise, and like because like I said when what was it, Jurassic World Dominion, was that the one where the island blew up?
Yeah. No,
I was
Fallen Kingdom was the one where it
Fallen
blew up.
Kingdom. Yeah, and I was like, okay, like that makes some sense because it's like as a writing tool, like we're stuck on the island. Like it only works on the island. And then we blew it up, and I was like, that makes sense. Let's start building something new. And then immediately I was like full of regret. I was like, let's go back to the island. Like
Yeah, they were.
we grew out of our britches on this one.
Well, I tried to watch some of Dominion the other day because I haven't seen it since I saw it in the theater, and I couldn't really remember why. And then I started to watch some of the clips, and I remembered why. Because I don't know, but I feel like if when we go back and rewatch them, I get the sense that's going to be my least favorite of all of the Jurassic
Mhm.
movies. Because it just, I don't know, man.
It was like they tried to make a Dinotopia.
Yeah, yeah. Like, give me dinosaur attacks where it's just people dying, you know? Just
do
like people
you
getting killed.
do you have a prediction for for Rebirth?
I heard it's supposed to be part one in a new trilogy, right? Am I crazy for thinking that?
Ooh, I haven't heard that, but I'd be into it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That's why I thought maybe. I mean, I know I read too that it was supposed to be after World, like the third World movie, but I don't know. Like, I feel like at this point, wouldn't they have known about this island that it was where they put all the other I don't know. It's hard to
Well, but
say now, but you
there
know,
is like a thing in Fallen Kingdom, I think it is, or it's the first Jurassic World movie. I can't remember which one it was, but they're like whisking Henry Wu off to like, do some science stuff. And I think they talk about like there's another site. I don't know if they call
really,
it Site B. Yeah. Because remember, he was like working with the military in that one too. Like that's why,
yeah,
like, with the Raptors and Dominus Rex. So I have a hot theory that we're gonna get into some weird territory where it's like this giant mutant dinosaur, like that scene in the trailer where like it's straight out of the Godzilla movie, where they're like the two people meet at the doors. It's like locked down, and then the mutant dinosaur pops up behind them. Like I think that's gonna be like Henry and like somebody he cared a lot about, and
that
then
would be interesting.
but like I also don't want to fall into this trap of like let's go down like deep into Henry Rue's like backstory, like what I mean? Like
I
kind of like
know.
that ship has sailed. Like,
That's why I'm not 100% sure what to expect. Like, I know that they have the one of the screenplay writers that his name's like David Keop or something.
yeah,
I can't remember. He's like back to write it, and I don't think he has done one since The Lost World, right? Or did he only work on the first Jurassic Park?
I thought he only did the first Jurassic Park, but maybe he did Lost World too.
Maybe. I honestly can't remember. Like, but I think it was just Michael Crichton and him who wrote the screenplay for the movie, wasn't it? Like the first Jurassic
Mhm.
Park. So the fact that
Yeah,
he's back is cool. Mm, I don't
it's
know.
interesting. I think there's a shot where I think it's a T Rex like chomping at somebody in the water. So I wonder if it's gonna be like the whole raft sequence where like they're trying to get away from, which was like
Yeah,
we're not gonna get there today, but I'm also like a little bit disappointed because I was like, I just want a fucking glowing egg. Like,
I know you're really dead set on those glowing eggs. But maybe they'll. I mean, that could happen. It looks like there's a bunch of cool lab stuff in this too, so that'll be
Mhm.
fun. It looks like fun. Like I think it looks like cool, and I think Gareth Edwards is a pretty interesting director for something like this, where he did Godzilla and Rogue One and The Creator. Like he does really big um things. Like he shoots scale really well, I think, in his movies. So I
I
think
think
it's
it
gonna
will
be
be
cool.
a Jurassic Park movie that aged with its audience. And in a way that a lot of franchises, like I wouldn't say Star Wars really did a good job of that. Although Endor, we always come back to Andor, is like a bit of an exception, you know what I mean? But like I think we tend to placate towards like, oh, like this worked really well, but we don't allow for the growth of the audience, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
coming up with like an R-rated Jurassic Park film is like you're getting the OGs back.
Yeah, I think that they're trying harder. That's just the feeling I got, like the vibes from the new trailer. If all is said and done, if there's one takeaway from me for it, it's like, okay, like at least they're trying to make like a scary dinosaur movie. And yeah, there's a mutant in it, but I feel like we've known about that for so many years now that
Mhm.
I'm not surprised at all. Like it looks exactly like how I thought it would be, really. Like
Mhm.
I don't know. Although it's really fucking big, so
Yeah, my first instinct was just like, it looks like a Lord of the Ring troll. Like, what is going on
it
here?
does look like a Lord of the Rings troll. That's so true. Now I'll never unsee it. But I don't know, like all the dinosaur stuff looks cool. The T-Rex thing in the water. Somebody on like Twitter was like, "Man, like how do they even do this?" You can see all like the bubbles coming out of its mouth, and it looks pretty good. Like that looks
Yeah.
cool.
People are really like shitting on the Spinosaurus. People hate the
I
Spinosaurus.
know, I know. I saw some people do like close-up screen grabs of it, and they like are looking at its jaw, and it looks like you can see how it would have been a like to the side kind of dinosaur they didn't use because it has like all these extra like layers of teeth that are all side by
Mhm.
side like a shark. So I don't know, we'll probably see some pretty cool dinosaurs. I'm kind of stoked to see some messed up genetically engineered shit here.
Mhm. Well, did
I'm
you
in.
see in some of the trailers, like, and some people have been grabbing like stills? There's like a Velociraptor, like two-headed embryo in like a vial.
No, I didn't see that. That's
Yeah.
fucked.
So with that said, what chapter do we start on for this block? The
Honestly,
fact that they did not number the chapters just like breaks my brain.
I know every time me and you were about to do a chunk of this, I just send you the audiobook like thing. I'm like, I guess this. So basically, I have it started at the tour, and like before this was a control chapter where they're like talking about how they're about to start them up on the tour, and yeah, basically it's just them getting into the vehicles to like start the
Yeah,
tour.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm thinking this is also I think the first time where Crichton does that weird thing where he keeps pointing out black people, and I don't know
I
why. It like
know.
makes me uncomfortable.
I've listened to it a bunch of times, and every time I'm like, but why? Like he's just like the black man closed the doors, and it's like you could have just said the park employees closed the doors. Like I don't know, very strange. But every single time, I'm like, I feel like secondhand embarrassment for it. I don't know what's happening there, but
There's
yeah,
also like it brings up like another topic that we haven't really dove into where it's like there's a whole bunch of people here working.
yeah, like
Like
a bunch.
we almost need to keep like I actually took notes to be like, what dinosaurs did we actually see in this part? But
I
we
did that
almost need to
too.
start like a kill count. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like who's getting eaten?
Well, because in the movie they don't really I mean you see people leaving when the storm's coming, but nobody I got the impression that there was nobody else on the island except for the cast that we were following in the movie.
Yeah, well, they say Arnold at one point says like the last boat leaves at this time, drop what you're doing and leave now. And then when they meet Harding at the Triceratops, the Stegosaurus in this chapter, when they meet him at the Triceratops, he says like, "Oh, I can drop Ellie off at the guest lodge before I go and catch the boat."
Uh,
But I never really alluded if they evacuated because of the storm, or if like just everybody leaves for the weekend. It was really
yeah,
bizarre.
that's what I was confused about too, because I assume they have tons of tropical storms there in at that type of area. Side note, when I mean this is skipping around a little bit, but like when they cast off with the boat, is that not Dennis Nedry's boat that he needs to catch? Like, is he already missing it? Like, is it already gone? Like, he would it already have been gone even if his plan followed through?
So I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't think the movie did a very good job of this. But in the movie, my impression was that yes, there was somebody on that boat that Nedry had to do a handoff off.
Hmm.
In the book, there's a different boat that goes to a different dock.
Uh, so there is another boat that he is
Yeah.
gonna catch. Okay, that's what I was confused about because when they cast off, I was like, well, Nedry's fucked anyways because he would have missed it. So
He's also not supposed to leave. Like he was supposed to do a handoff, and then like he had this idea that he could be back and nobody would be suspect. But it's like, holy shit, dude! It's like raining out. Like you're gonna come back
yeah,
soaked and sweaty. Like,
I know. I don't know. He was. he was doomed from the get-go, it seems like. That's why I've worn my Dennis Nedry when he makes the deal with Dodson shirt in Menrins. I had a bunch of different shirts I was gonna wear today, and I was like, Cora, should I wear this one or this one or this one? And she was like, well, how many other parts in the future are gonna have Nedry in it? I was like, well, wait, none. I think he dies in this whole thing we're doing today. She was like, you gotta wear it today then. And I was like, that's fair. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's what I noticed about them starting the tour this in like the book that I thought was really cool was like, I mean, they go out of their way to say that they're the Land Cruisers, right, from Toyota. So it's weird because I can't disassociate the Ford Explorers in my head.
Yeah.
Like every time I read it, I just picture the Ford Explorers from Jurassic Park the movie. Um, I should really Google what these Land Cruisers would look like. I have no idea.
Mhm.
They definitely
They're
don't have glass roofs, right?
no, they would. They would actually look more like a G wagon. Like a G wagon is what they had in Jurassic World. More
Oh,
like a Jeep looking thing. They're more boxy.
I see. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'll try to unthink that. I'll work on it. Side note, is the reason okay, I know that they have like the red stripe on the Jeeps they say to like try to get the is it the Triceratops away from like
Well, the
charging them?
Triceratops were yeah, exactly.
But what about the actual Land Cruisers? Did they say in the novel that they had the stripes on them at all? I can't
N-
remember.
Not in the Land Cruisers because they actually say that if they didn't see it, like if they were close enough to see us because they're like nearsighted, that they would ram the Land Cruisers. But there's supposed to be like a level of barriers and stuff between, like in the infinite planning that is Jurassic Park and InGen. There's supposed to be like moats and fences and stuff between the guests and the Triceratops.
Right. Right.
Um, we should make a bingo card. So every time we put out a podcast, we put out a bingo card before, and then when we say it, then people can dab it off.
Hey, I mean that's a future prospect right there. That's a couple
um,
followers.
but but that's why, like, when they find out that the Dilophosaur can spit venom, it's like an issue because they worry about them spitting through the fence at the guests.
Yeah, it's weird the way they describe them spitting in the novel because they have like a little head snap because you don't
Yeah,
really see them actually spit ever in the movies, right? Does that ever happen?
not no. Well, maybe when Nedry's in the Jeep and it, but like I think they allude in the movie that has to do with their frill, which
Right.
I googled and is not a thing that anybody thinks that Dilophosaur actually had.
It is not real. Okay.
Is not
Interesting.
real, and it doesn't exist in the book, or at least they never mention it in the book.
Do we know? Do
But
they ever actually spit though? Do we know that for sure, or is that made up too?
I don't know if there's any way to really know that for sure.
Yeah, I guess so. Hmm.
But I like also looked up and it's like there's like a buttload of time between like Dilophosaur and like T Rex. It's like 100 million years between the two.
Really?
Yeah.
It's so weird to think about because I think most people don't realize how much time scale there is between
Mhm.
all the dinosaurs, which is another really cool thing about the movie that ties in with all the control and nature stuff because I found like this time of going through this, I found like they really amped up the level of control, like all these different controls and how nature was just like about to bring it all down. Not even just nature, but like, they have like the control. They keep saying the control chapter whenever they go back to control. And they
Yeah.
really emphasize it. It's like they're controlling the park, but they make a point to say like the people in the control room never actually go out into the park and see it functioning. So I think that it was really kind of spooky reading it because you know that they're the first group ever to tour the park. And there's kids, which is crazy. Like, John Hammond's insane for bringing his grandkids to the first tour ever of this place.
Well, I think that there's like a level of like people have been through this because there's a point where Regis, when they're at I think they're at the text pen and they're like commenting about like how beautiful it is and how easy it is to like fall for like, oh, I'm back in Jurassic times. And Regis actually says he's like, yeah, sometimes I come out here just to like enjoy
Yeah,
the
and
view.
Grant's like, you're really ruining this for me.
But
I love that about
yeah,
Alan Grant.
it's interesting because like this is like a little bit of a jump, but there's a part where Arnold's like, no, everything's messed up. Like this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. Like we have all these things that it's I was thinking about this. It reminds me of like I have like all the Google Home stuff and like all the things. And I set it up with my mom's, but every time I go to my mom, something's like messed up and like not working. It's like, but Arnold says all these things that aren't working and like they're engineered to work, but they're still figuring out the bugs. But later on, when I think they're at the T-Rex pen, I wrote this down in my notes. They yeah, it is the T-Rex pen. They're like speculating, like, oh, like could the T-Rex get out? Like if this got out, it'd be unstoppable. And Henry Wu says like is talking about like how could it ever get out? He literally says, we engineered he says we engineered the dinosaurs like we engineered the park. Which
Yeah.
is just like immense amounts of like, oh,
Little
foreshadowing.
foreshadowing there. Yeah, because he even is just like, are they still worried about dinosaurs getting out? Like we've already been over this kind of thing. But it's kind
I
of
mean,
like, how couldn't you worry?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, no,
yeah, shit, fucking dinosaurs.
that really hit me like as this last listen through. I was like, I gotta write that down.
There is a lot of cool quotes, like, because they'll say something and then something crazy will happen. Like, even when Ian Malcolm delivers his line, like, life finds a way or whatever,
Yeah.
and suddenly Grant comes up running and he's like, we found dinosaur eggs, which is, I'm obviously jumping ahead, but like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of cool parts that I'm glad they lifted some of the dialogue right from this and put in the movie, because
Mhm.
even when you're reading in the book, you're like, oh, it's Jeff Goldblum, you know? You can only picture him or hear him saying it. Uh, but yeah, some of the 80s tech is pretty cool. I love that they have laser discs in the Land Cruisers.
Oh my
Like,
god, it's just
whoa.
so cool. Like this hurts me. The laser
Like,
distance hook up to the motion sensors in the park that identifies the dinosaurs. It's like,
yeah, it's such an old school, like linear way of the only way they assumed stuff would work when he wrote the book, where it's like, I don't know, like no wonder the Jurassic Park has bugs. You fucking laser discs coming,
um, what was the first dinosaur? I messed this up in my notes because I wrote down that they
Hypo,
saw the
hyp,
Othnielia.
it's a hypoceles. Hypoceles? I can't say it properly.
Well, I think they call them hipsies in the book
Oh,
all
do
the
they?
time. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Those are them.
And then they see like the Othnielia in the tree, and like the Othnielia is the one that they're like, yeah, we just can't keep track of them. They're the exception to us keeping track of things.
Yeah, it's really weird, man. Like the fact that they only had their system made to count what they generated out of their incubators and didn't like have the computers to like count above that just in case is wild. Like I basically everybody in the book comes to the realization of how bad of an idea that was. Even Mr. Arnold, he's like, "Oh, we just counted how many dinosaurs we assumed that we generated. We wouldn't need to go above that because they can't breed, you know?"
Mhm,
But then when they're like, "Oh," Ian Malcolm's like, "Oh, get them to count, higher and higher and higher," and keeps growing the number. I
mhm.
wish that was in the movie because that was a really cool like reveal where it's almost like you can feel the anxiety of all the characters, like especially John Hammond. He's like, "What are you talking about?"
Mhm.
Um, uh, just went off on a tangent there. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, like we could like it's right on par with where like the interesting part of this because they saw some dinosaurs, they thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing I did point out that I think is like important is this the first time too that they mentioned that the supply vessel is on a 2-week cycle between the mainland. And if you go back, I'm pretty sure that lines up with like the recorded dinosaur attacks on the mainland. Remember
Oh,
when
yeah.
Malcolm was saying like this doesn't make sense unless there's something else here. But the part he didn't know about was the supply ship going back and forth.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of thought there must have been a reason they mentioned that. I was like, Cody's gonna know something.
Yeah. So that was the first time we got. There was something else that caught my eye too. I don't know. There's a bunch of that like exposition in this section. Like this is where Muldoon also puts the launchers in the Jeep right
Oh
before Nedry
yeah.
takes it. I know what it was. We have like the cycle that is the boat leaving, taking dinosaurs. This is also the part of the book where they see the dinosaurs on the boat, which includes a cycle of dinosaurs attacking people on the mainland. But then we have like Ellie investigating the Stegosaurus thing,
Hmm.
which is all about the cycle of the Stegosauruses moving around this island and also regurgitating the
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 gallstone thingies,
yeah
or
yeah yeah
whatever they're called, the Githerstone, or what?
the
Gizzard
gizzard
stone?
gizzard
Yeah.
gizzard stones, yeah. And it's like there's this whole investigation into the cycle of like what's going wrong there. And I think that's just to emphasize like the cycle of the dinosaurs leaving the island.
Yeah, there's a lot of little like small it all goes back to that fractal curve thing that Malcolm's talking about. He's like, "Oh, because you have a mountain, but it's a mountain and it's huge. If you go down to like a pebble or like a microscopic, version of a rock, it's the same thing. It's just repeating itself." So I thought that like they crammed a lot of those examples just in this section of the book right before everything goes completely off the rails. Like even the cars when they're at the first dinosaurs, and they make a point to say like there's a grind in the gears, and it's like, okay, like here's the start of issues. Like it's not even just the gear grinding. It's like it's like another foreshadowing thing. It's like a bigger issue because if they can't get that to work, what else is going to happen after this? That's why I thought the Laserdisc thing was hilarious. And like, there's no way that was going to keep working. Or the dinosaurs weren't showing up when they thought they would be. Like, they thought that they could control this whole thing where it would all work out properly. And really, only Mr. Arnold is the one with the experience to be like, I've worked at all these other parks. There's always problems. They take forever. I think he says at one point it takes like weeks or months to work out one bug, and they have like over 125 different bugs or something in their system so far.
Well, I
Something
think
like that.
Muldoon's also like in the privy, like this is not as smooth as people think, because Hammond says that like we believe that the dinosaurs are just gonna fall in line like zoo animals. And then Muldoon has that whole thing talking about like animals that are like fence busters or fence
Yeah,
breakers. And he's like, like who would have thought that like the giant armadillo is like a notorious like fence breaker, or like the moose that's like as dicteria like with its muzzle as an elephant with its trunk.
yeah. It's funny how you have all these different like experts there, but it takes them bringing in like paleontologists and like kids to really see through everything. Like,
Mhm.
there's even a part where Hammond is like, "Oh, they're going through the whole park like accountants, and they're just pulling it apart." And it's like, they're not. They're dinosaur experts and children. Like, these are probably your bread and butter of people who would be
Mhm.
interested in going to the island. I thought it was funny that Hammond kept saying balls every time he said balls. I was like, did he just say balls again? Like, is this something old people said back then? I just couldn't believe it. I don't know.
Do you think like frequently through this section it talks about like the different issues that dinosaurs have? Like the Ophelia have like a skin issue. They talk about the Rex is probably sensitive to the sun and a bit shy. They talk about the
Yeah.
dinosaurs getting sick. This is where they talk about the Rex is drinking the lagoon water. The Stegosaurus having massive diarrhea. Do you think some of that is to like prove that these aren't real dinosaurs, or do you think it's actually to make the dinosaurs seem more authentic?
Honestly, I thought that it was just because they had issues cloning them. Like, I
Mhm,
assumed that I don't know why. I mean, they could just be natural things from them, but I got the impression that it was all because either they made a point to say like, oh, like something didn't fold, like an enzyme didn't fold or something, or they're missing these little chunks of their code. I assume that they're just like things going wrong with these dinosaurs that they've made.
well, there's a
Um,
point where, like, I think it's Malcolm is saying, like, look, like they're looking at the Stegosaurus. He's like, look at the thing. Like the thing's wheezing because the atmosphere is not nearly as rich in oxygen as it
yeah, and
used to
we
be.
we talked about it on the first episode because I was like, because I don't think I had realized at this point that they talked about that. Because yeah, and even the solar radiation is different, which I didn't even think about till I read this book. And it's
Mhm,
like, does that tie into the T Rex having the sunburns? Because the atmosphere would have been so different and shielding would have been different and the sun is different back then because it was so long ago that
mhm.
It's probably a mix, I guess, of both. Like maybe it's inherited stuff from their timeline mixed with genetic issues of them cloning them, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
It's so weird because there's no baseline. Like if you cloned a horse and the horse was getting a rash, you'd be like, "Oh, maybe we fucked this up."
Yeah,
But like because you have
exactly.
nothing to base it off of, it's like kind
Arnold
of a
even
wild
says
thing.
that. Tom Arnold even says that. He's like, we have all these problems like of a normal park, but we have all these extinct animals we brought back on top of all this stuff. Like,
Mhm,
and they want to open the park basically in a year. And Hammond even goes out of his way to say, like, oh, we have like, I think it's like a Japan park they want to do and like a Europe or something. He says there's
mhm.
2 other islands they're working on and like a year they're supposed to break ground or something. And it's like, it keeps following up with that theme where like they're getting so ahead of themselves constantly with
Mhm.
everything, and it really makes it seem like they're destined just to completely fail because you have like Arnold blaming the park of the dinosaurs, but you have like Hammond blaming the engineers working on the park system. So you have like there's so many like levels of stuff going wrong before the tour even starts that
Mhm.
I thought it was kind of funny that I just didn't really realize how you could just break it into like the control and nature thing over and over and over again as like a precursor to what goes wrong. But balls, balls. And they think the dinosaurs are trainable right from the get-go, which I thought was really cool because they
Mhm.
don't follow through with that until Jurassic World, really, where they're trying to train them.
Yeah, well, even like Muldoon, like when things start going sideways. So like not that hopefully whatever, we don't care about jumping around, but like when they lose power, Muldoon's like, they already know the fences are spicy, so they're probably not gonna go through it. But the next thing we know, all these dinosaurs are gonna lose. It's like apparently they weren't spicy enough, you know?
Yeah, dude, the T-Rex like grabbed that thing immediately, which I thought was really weird. Like I was thinking about that, like, how did it know? Like, would it have like had a hum or something that the dinosaur
Yeah.
would have been picking up on? Maybe.
Well, I thought about that. I was like, oh, like in the movie, the fences have lights and stuff on them. They'll be like they're hot, like they have like red spinning lights, and maybe there's any number of cues that maybe it gets straight up sense the electricity. Maybe T Rex had like that electro searching thing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's another one of those things where it's like you have no baseline dinosaur to really know, and it ties back into them like being like way ahead of themselves. Another thing I thought was funny about them being ahead of themselves was when they're going through the park and they have the automated voice over it, and they're like, up here you'll see like our restaurant where we have this chef, and like there's nothing built there yet. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have that," and it's like, man, you guys are really, really ahead of yourselves here. It's crazy.
Mhm,
I thought that was kind of funny.
mhm.
I want to go to Jurassic Park. This sounds awesome. Still, it's like I know he's
Oh,
the guy.
I know we talked about the electric cars. The only thing that like kind of grinded my gears, hilarious.
No
I
pun
didn't mean that.
intended.
Um, is that they talk about the transmission in the electric cars, but there would be no transmission in the electric
I
cars.
know. It's really weird. Even like I think we talked about this in the last episode, but like the fact that stuff comes from underground, I love like when Muldoon does put the rocket launcher into the car, it's like he goes to the underground thing and you see all the other land cruisers that are supposed to be going out with all the
Mhm,
groups of people. I don't know. There's so many weird little underground things they keep mentioning, and it keeps making me think of Camp Cretaceous so much because there's so much
mhm,
underground stuff happening under the park that I wonder how much Michael Crichton actually, if he actually meant for that to be like a whole other element where there's underground shit, or it's just like throwaway things like the goat coming out from underground and like uh all the bunkers and stuff that lead underground to like the inner workings of the park. All the
mhm,
cables are underground for all the cars that would have to be installed. So there's got to be some pretty uh heavy shit down there, right? Like there's a whole infrastructure happening.
mhm.
I don't know. Might be grasping at straws here.
No, it's good.
Camp Cretaceous, throwback, brohead.
So the first dinosaurs we see the Hepsies and the Ophthalia in the same paddock. Then we see Dilos, the Dilophosaur,
Yeah, yeah. And they
and then
didn't
we
even know
get
they were poisonous, right? Till they clone them. which was cool.
Yeah, I love the part too though where they're talking about like they're trying to find the poison sacks, but they don't wanna like kill one to find them until because they're expensive.
Yeah, like management's like, we can't do that, even though people are probably gonna die who were like working on the park. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
And
Um,
then and then I think it's the Triceratops.
yeah, that's what I got here too.
But then is it the Triceratops paddock where Tim sees the raptor?
I don't think no, not yet. That's not until I think around the Stegosaurus part.
Because then
Um,
so the next one then is the Rex.
yeah, like they see the Triceratops. They make a point to say they like to be petted, which is really weird because I didn't catch that the first time. They talk about the stripe thing on the Jeep, trying to like a deterrent for them. I thought it was weird that like Lex could roll her window down. Like she
Yeah,
just
that's
rolls
weird.
it down and she yells at the Triceratops, especially where like they just talked about how the Dilophosaurus is poisonous and can like spit like 50 feet. It's like I'm shocked, that they could do that.
Well, also too, because like when Nara does go out, Muldoon says that like he's not worried about the dinosaurs getting out, he's worried about the people getting out. Can you
Yeah.
imagine like the ding dongs, like if like the park opens up and people can roll down their windows, like the first thing some ding dongs are gonna do are climb out and go try to like, I don't know, pet a Dilophosaur, like
If there was a real Jurassic Park, we'd have so many YouTubers and influencers just dead, probably. They'd be
yeah.
like, I got out of my car at Jurassic Park, hashtag, you know, fuck Dilophosaurus.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, no, you're right though. They went to the T-Rex after that. So
But the other
that
thing I know
was
is that they always talk about how bad all these dinosaurs smell, but they never explain why they smell so bad.
I know, it makes you think because even Lex makes a or is it Lex or Ellie? I don't know. One of them is like, oh, it smells a certain way. It must be because it's sick, or would it have smelled that way naturally? Because you don't know. There's no baseline. It's
Yeah.
really weird. Uh,
Something I caught there too is Ellie's like it smells familiar, but like they never elaborate on what was familiar to her, or at least they haven't yet. Maybe as we read through the next chapters for the podcast, I'll catch it finally.
we'll go all the way back.
But they even make like she makes the point to say that this is like these smells are usually reserved for predators.
Oh, interesting. That makes sense too, though. Huh. So much cool stuff in the book, man. Like, I love, like, as a side note, I love they have all this technology talk. They have all this dinosaur talk. I feel like, and a lot of philosophy talk and mathematics. There's
Mhm,
just so much stuff that Michael Crichton seems to like spun together where it just seems like an interesting read every single time I have to go
mhm.
back over a chapter. It's really fun. Um, yeah.
Did you notice too, like the part where they're talking about the stego like being down, and they're like, there's like puffs of steam coming out because like that area is like
Volcanic or
genetically
whatever.
volcanic. But I'm like,
Yeah.
that sounds like a terrible place to build a park. Like,
I
isn't that
know.
all like toxic gas and stuff?
Even in the Jurassic World sequel, when they're like, "Oh, there's a volcano," I remember seeing the trailers and being like, "A volcano? They didn't? Did they say that in the movie? I don't remember that." But then you read the
Mm.
book, and it's like not a huge deal, but it's like big a deal enough that it gets mentioned over and over again, like for a reason. So it's kind of, you know, can't be
But
safe.
even like Yellowstone, like there's parts like at one point they found like a whole herd of buffalo dead, and it turned out it was like the earth just like farted out some toxic gas, like killed all these buffalo in one go. So you think
Really?
you have this whole island of dinosaurs that like are incredibly expensive. You might try to keep them out of the gassy parts.
Put them all in there. It's for effect. Side note: Michael Crichton apparently is like super against Yellowstone. I was
Oh,
reading
really?
the yeah, yeah. I completely forgot about that till you just mentioned it. But yeah, I was reading this article about him, and he was talking about how them introducing animals into Yellowstone was such a bad idea because
Mm,
it's in that philosophy Jurassic Park book. I'm kind of like reading that at the same time as this book, and he kind of like put some of this into Jurassic Park as a novel because he was like, well, you can't just take extinct animals, not extinct animals, animals that shouldn't be in that environment and reintroduce them because it can mess up, a whole bunch of different shit. So it's funny that you bring that up.
Well, it's
whole
interesting because like they talk about. Have you ever seen that video about like they introduce wolves into Yellowstone and that push the elk up, and the next thing birds are shitting on the water and the fish get food, and it's like this whole like they call it like a tropic cascade. So people
oh,
are like they release wolves on like fixed Yellowstone. It's like it's a cool idea, but it's not totally accurate. Like there were plenty of other things going on in Yellowstone that contributed to that,
hmm.
but I think about that a lot. Like we talk about like Jurassic Park and the dinosaurs, and even a little bit about bringing back extinct species through. I feel like I'm like a spokesperson for Colossal because I bring it up every podcast.
That's
But
okay.
like this idea that like Colossal are really good because they're talking about bringing back mammoths and bringing back species that we may go extinct. And I think when we talk about animals that we may go extinct either through direct hunting or we influence our environment or we introduce like animals like in a lot of island nations we introduce things that competed them or straight up killed them, then I think there's like a warranted desire to be like, no, we fucked up, we should bring that thing back. But when we talk about dinosaurs and woolly mammoths, like not that we don't have any like responsibility, like we shouldn't feel, or not that I feel any guilt that like dinosaurs went extinct, but like dinosaurs went extinct, and then a whole different world of environment arose, and things that the dinosaurs used to occupy environmentally, and then stopped. Other things filled those spaces.
Yeah, yeah.
So for us to like bring things in and try to fill those, like also occupy those spaces, doesn't make a lot of sense.
I know there's a lot of stuff in that Philosophy of Jurassic Park book about that because they have a lot of different opinions on that. Um, Somebody brings up a point like if we have the technology in the future, like some people argue that, is it our responsibility then since we have that technology to try to bring them back even though it isn't our responsibility, but because we wield the tools to be able to do it, is that not a reason to bring them back since they got so fucked over from the environment basically changing as a result of, the asteroids and like all that bullshit that happened to them. But and other people are like, like you were saying, said, well, if it's not our responsibility that they went extinct, why would we bring them back then? Because the entire environment is totally different, right? So
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm had that line in the movie. It's like we're not trying to save California condors. You know what I mean? Like we're not talking about something that was wiped off the face of the earth because of like DDT. And like he gets
dinosaurs had their chance.
a little bit of like a like I stay away from the God perspective of it. But would you like? Do you want to displace like elephants to bring back mammoths? Like that's not, what I mean. Like I don't think anybody reasonably could like have that argument.
No, the only thing I've ever thought of where it might make sense to bring back dinosaurs or any extinct animals that we weren't responsible for making go extinct. I think it's 3001. It's the last 2001 Odyssey book in the series that Arthur C. Clarke wrote. In that far ahead in the future, they actually have these like museum slash nature exhibit things, but their entire like biodomes basically just built to house those creatures or whatever from that time. So you can emulate the solar radiation and the the chemical composition of like the atmosphere, and all that stuff is identical to how it would be, and they just put them within their own like time period. So you can't do a Jurassic Park deal where you mix up all these different time periods and you don't, give them the right food and all that shit. But then again, you get into the whole like, how do you bring them back without having a baseline? You're never ever gonna know. You will never
Mm.
ever know. That's why, Wu makes a point of saying like these aren't real dinosaurs. They're actually not real dinosaurs. Even though they look real, they're never gonna be real because they don't exist in that time period. So there's no way of getting around that, I guess. Unless we have a time machine, of course.
Have you ever heard of like a British TV show called Primeval?
Uh, I don't know. I don't think so.
It's weird because it's like like it's like a little bit Doctor Whoian, but like these portals pop up and they're portals to like the past. and later on in the series, portals to the future. But
Ooh.
like creatures crawl out of the portal, so like they'll like open up a portal or like a portal, like they don't open them up, they just open up on their own. And like arboreal raptors crawl out. So there's a whole episode of them like chasing arboreal raptors and trying to send them back in time.
Hmm.
But there was a one season called Primeval New World, and it was shot in Vancouver. And it was supposed to be like the North American spinoff. And they end up dealing with like an army general that's trying to like take over like this whole portal thing because they're like the primeval, like the dudes that you follow are like their own agency. But this military guy is like, no, you don't understand. There's an algae in the Cretaceous that's known for breaking down CO2. So we want to go back and get this algae so we can like stop global warming.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's like a little bit of a segue, but I can see that like the idea of like, I don't know, like if somebody was ever like, oh, I don't know, there's a special element in the fins of Stegosaurus, then people doing it for like weirdly,
Isn't that
you
what
know,
Rebirth is about? Like they're going in to get something for.
bringing it back to rebirth.
Yeah, I was like, he's getting it Rebirth here. No, because then it kind of justifies it. Like they're not just like, we're going back again. We're going back to the park. We're gonna try it again. It's not like that in this movie. They have a mission. They're going to extract something from some dinosaur eggs or whatever, and it's supposed to help people, right? Like that's the premise of their mission or something.
Yeah, but then we get into crazy territory with like, people don't think a lot, like have like a good sense of good feelings about animal testing. But like we're literally recreating a species just to like harvest it for, and then like where does it live? You know what I mean? Like that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Dude, I would have thought that any of that stuff probably wouldn't happen, but the way recent events have been going in the news, I'm like, I would not put it past that happening now at this point. Like, I feel like the cuffs, like they're just gone, and I think that we're probably gonna be seeing some pretty crazy shit happening pretty
Well,
soon.
they've already done like I think there's a woman that has a pig heart or something. But like those aren't normal pigs. Like those are pigs that are grown in medical settings. And I think
Interesting.
with like some level of genetic manipulation.
I mean, it's
So
gonna
like
happen.
yeah, I like it's such a messy topic because like even people um like yeah, I don't know, dude, animal testing and like the whole I think there's a thing too with like people who are diabetic that there's like some stuff that comes from dogs in labs.
Really?
Like yeah, because there was a whole thing about like the vice president of PETA has a pet dog or she's diabetic or something. And we're like, so people were like, well, if you're diabetic, like your medication's coming from dogs. Like, how do you feel about
Interesting.
that?
I didn't know that. That's bizarre.
Yeah, dude, it's like animals in labs is such a complicated issue. I don't know how to, yeah.
I know. I've heard of people being like, well, eventually, they won't have to grow the entire animal, and they just take a sliver of it, and you just grow that limb or something. But
Mhm.
and they're like, it's more humane because there's no. They see in the philosophy book, the Jurassic Park one. I'll put a link to it eventually when we're done. But like, they talk about how like there's a pretty interesting whole chapter just back and forth with a teacher and a student talking about like a soul and like if even if you take out a religious element, does something alive have a soul? Do plants have souls? Like that's how environmental movements started back in the day. That they're saying that everything that's alive basically has this going on because it's alive, and it's like if you clone something, does it have a soul? Of course, it would have a soul because it's alive, and it's not an exact copy. You can't copy something's soul, but you're making a new one basically, even though physically it's the same on the outside. Um, but if you get into stuff like with cloning and gene splicing, and you're not, you're not making the whole animal. You can just make somebody's like a limb. Like it gets into really weird territory that I think that no matter what, we're going to be headed towards very quickly in the near
Well,
future.
they dive big time into this in the Lost World, where like even, um, I think they've made it to the island, and Malcolm's talking to Hammond's nephew, and he's like, you can't do this. These animals live in it, like they've created this whole ecosystem. You can't just take them for profit. And Hammond's nephew has a line where it's like, an animal that has no place here and has been created, it has no rights.
Ooh. Wait, Hammond's
So
in the sequel?
Hammond is in The Lost World very briefly, but it's Hammond's nephew.
Okay.
So remember, because like Hammond calls Malcolm, and like Hammond's like sick in the bed, and he's like, there's another island, and your girlfriend's already there.
Yeah, that's crazy. Even rewatching
and,
that now, I'm like, wow, holy
and
shit.
then his nephew's the one that gets with the glasses. When they're like, remember, he's in the truck with Roland, and Roland turns to him and is like, listen, I'm tired of hearing bad ideas. I don't care about your money. I just want to shoot a T-Rex. Like,
Yeah,
just leave me
he's
alone.
straight up just like, I need a buck. I need to hunt this T-Rex. Um, sorry, I've made us go into a crazy
No,
spiral of
it's great. I love it.
tangents here. We got into souls. We did
Dude.
some soul searching there. But it's true though. I mean, the things that we're talking about in fiction right now, they will have these issues down the road. For real. It'll be a crazy thing. It's gonna be nuts.
Well, it's crazy because like it sounds like a weird thing to talk about on Jurassic Park podcast, but it's really where people talk about being informed and stuff. But it helps to be informed, and it helps to be able to like when people start talking about these things and people start creating policies. Like the whole theme of Jurassic Park is Crichton saying this stuff is happening and nobody's paying attention. So I think as us as people walking into this situation, that it's important for us to pay attention and at least develop our own opinions so that when we can at least comment on it and maybe, we all vote. So,
Yeah.
push your politicians in the direction that you feel comfortable.
Talk about cloning with them. See where they stand. Could you imagine if I went up to like an MLA intro and I'm like, where do you stand on cloning? They'd be like,
Dude, I bet you though, like, Cora, you're kind of in egg country. They're probably
true.
more informed about it than you think.
That is like genetically modified all the food and everything too. Yeah. That is a
Well,
whole
dude, have you ever noticed like you drive by like a agricultural field and they literally have signs up of what strain of crop they're growing?
No, I didn't even notice that actually.
Yeah,
That's
like
crazy.
they'll have signs up for like this is like the Monsanto whatever the fuck.
I should go to the agricultural college here and we could interview them and be like, can you
Dude,
explain?
we used to do trivia there once a year, and I was like, "Show me where the mutants are." Like I was literally like,
Hey, you know what though? It's just down the street from me, so that's kind of trippy to even think about. I got us completely. I don't even
"No,
know
it's
where.
good topics though." We've gotten to the Stegosaurus, where Ellie's talking about the Stegosaurus, and Malcolm explains chaos theory.
Right, right, right. And there's like little things in between that it's like, like Muldoon's backstory. We get a bit of like how he got there and like they kind of make a point like very briefly to be like, oh, like a moose and like an armadillo are able to like open things, and that's kind of like paving the way for raptors, like, oh shit, like they could open the doors later. Um
Also, for anybody that's listening to this podcast that isn't from Canada, the idea that moose just get out on the regular is terrifying. Moose kill more people in Canada than any other animal.
They're enormous. It's pretty scary.
Like if you operate a zoo and a moose is getting out all the time, like that's like the equivalent of like a Canadian rhino.
We'll try to get a moose on the next episode, actually. It's too bad because, like, today, if they made Jurassic Park, if you wrote it, they just put chips in all the animals and they would track them. So I don't even
Well,
know
that's what
how
they
they
did in
would.
Jurassic World.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that's right. But the Indominus dug it out. She knew
yeah,
where
in
they
my
put it.
mind, they should have put a little explosive in there too to just like, oh, things are going sideways. Blam!
Yeah, in hindsight, they definitely should have blown that dinosaur up, like, really, really early on. But it went on a
Yeah.
killing spree, and then we wouldn't have the movie, and then we wouldn't see
What
the
would
raptors.
Verizon have said to that? They just spent a bunch of money.
I love that guy. He's like Pepsi Soy, but we'll get to him way later. He was a great character. They also make a point to say the Raptors just basically kill for sport, right? Like they're just killing machines. Uh
I've got Raptor theory coming up that I think is gonna
oh,
be.
can't wait
I
to
can't
hear
even
this
wait.
one.
You know the Raptor that Yeah, I should save it. It's fine. We'll save it
No,
for a
no,
later episode.
you can't tease, or unless you want to say it. I mean, it's your call.
Well, it's like way down spoilers, but you know the raptor Tim plays with?
Yes.
I think that's like the version 4 raptor or whatever.
Oh.
But like later on in the book, way spoilers, they like the raptors are coming for them and they end up in the room with that little baby raptor and they throw
Mm.
him like they're like, go talk to your parents and let us free. And the raptors just fucking kill it right
I
away.
know. I was so sad at that part.
I
Like,
think it's because
oh.
they're like, oh, this is like the version 4 pussy raptor. We don't want anything to do with this.
You know, you're probably right. Because why wouldn't they have like tried to? Because it's a young animal. Although it's weird because the lions will kill other cubs, right? That aren't theirs. To
Yeah.
like, there's a whole other. There's a lot of levels of animal things and science and souls, and it gets insane here.
The other thing I like to imagine is like the raptor like Tim saw in the park and like the raptors in the cage. Like I like to imagine that they wouldn't get along. You know what I mean? Like the wild raptors are like feral as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, like they've and they're born in captivity too. I feel like with every version they're making, they're kind of like, okay, maybe we should be more, not humane, but like more humane, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Like I think it's a like raptor psychology is like a fascinating thing because they've had the raptors, they realized they couldn't control them, and they put them like in a small cage. Those raptors are probably like psychopaths. Like you know how
You're
like they
not
used to put
wrong.
people in crazy prisons and they used to go actual nuts. And they talk about doing that with animals. Like if you put like a dog in like a small cage and treat it not well, like that dog can be absolutely rude, like vicious. But then you have
Mm.
these like dinosaurs that we know from Grant finding the eggshell, like Grant says, like this is a velociraptor. So, so we know we've had like these free range raptors. Like maybe they're like less unhinged or more unhinged. Like maybe
Oh, I
they're not the
see.
most vicious animal that they've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's a good point. Because there's a lot more raptors near the end of the book. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And like even in this section, like um Tim sees a raptor and then they see the raptors running around on the supply boat. Like Lexi spots the raptors. And then they're like, "Oh, get the binoculars!" Oh, then you can see them running around on the boat.
I
And
was
this is where
thinking,
the drama starts of like, we gotta talk to the boat.
yeah, yeah, because they're like, we gotta turn the boat around, and Ian Malcolm's like, just relax, just call them, it's fine. And then they can't call them, and they're like, we can't call them. How the hell? I was wondering this in the book. I've been looking for art on the internet. It's like, I want to see what these kids saw because in the book they describe it as like the sun is going down, and you just see the silhouette of the ship like way out there,
I
and
know.
they somehow see these like not even full grown velociraptors like playing on the back of the boat. I'm like, how the hell do they see them? It's crazy.
And
But
like,
you know,
yeah. The other
it's a
crazy
book.
part is like later on, they're like they tell the guys in the crew, and like the crew finds the raptors and kills them. It's like, how do these guys in the boat kill these raptors? And these raptors are just demolishing all the people on the island. Like I just imagine a couple guys with like monkey wrenches, you know what I mean?
Dude, they're the free range raptors. They're maybe it's because they're nicer and they're like, hey, what's going on? And they get killed.
Mm.
Um, uh, you know what I thought was really scary was the way that Tim saw the raptor because you you don't have any loose dinosaurs being talked about at that point. They're just alluding to it with the mathematics with Malcolm and like they give you all the excuses in the world through the system and the cloning why there can't be any dinosaurs on the island that aren't like that they don't know about. And you know that it's gonna happen, but it's just so creepy, and I wish it was in the movie like that. Cause you Tim just kinda like out of the corner of his eye basically sees like a velociraptor in this the tall grass or whatever, just in the distance. And I had such a weird visual of that as I was reading it because it's so spooky because it's like it's not supposed to be there and it's a velociraptor loose on the island and everyone's like, are you sure? Like that can't be a velociraptor. And you have the kid who's a dinosaur expert like, yes, the fucking velociraptor, trust me. So and then that's when they get into the thing where Malcolm's like, tell your computer to count more than the expected dinosaurs that should exist right now, and that's how they realize that there's a lot more dinosaurs. Like, isn't there like 100 more almost than there's supposed to be?
Yeah, but I think there's like 297 or something. Like, is that amount of dinosaurs they find? And there could be more dinosaurs that are just not like, or happen to be in a tree or something when they do that particular count. You think this all could have been avoided if they thought there were 230 dinosaurs, they should have just made the count 231.
I
And
know.
then as soon as they got an extra one, be like, whoa, what's going on here? Like,
Yeah, they could have actually fixed that way earlier. Also, the weather's starting to change. They're starting to talk about like the thunder and everything. And I think that was kind of interesting because again, it's another level of them trying to control stuff because they have this tour, the first tour of the island, and they don't take into account like that there's a massive storm coming. They're just like, we're gonna have a tour, and they don't really pay attention to like nature enough to think that maybe they shouldn't have had it that day, or even earlier in the book, Malcolm is like, oh, do you know why they made computers? It's like because they wanted to predict weather, and so it kind of comes back around where it's like weather is about to play a big role in screwing everything up here with Nedry. But I just like
well,
that how they keep having levels of things going wrong.
well, it speaks to like the general lack of respect for like nature because
Yeah,
when the captain calls to be like, hey, I think we should set sail. Like, I know you got a few things left on this boat, but we don't have it. Like, we're gonna get caught in the storm. And Hammond's like, no, I need that stuff. It's for the labs. And they're like, okay, great, but we can stay here. You didn't pay for the weather break. Like, you didn't want to build a storm break.
yeah,
So, do you really want to stand here and have this ship maybe get destroyed at the pier, which will then shut down all the other supply shipments until you A, replace the ship and B, remove the wreckage? Like,
yeah,
he has to
yeah,
be convinced. And even then, he's like, he just like waves them off. He's like begrudgingly, like, yeah, like send them loose.
yeah. I thought that was really cool that Michael Crichton keeps like pushing that throughout the whole book. Like this whole section has like every couple pages, it seems like there's a miniature example of that, and it goes back to that whole fractal thing that Malcolm is talking about, where
Mhm.
life finds a way, and it just keeps happening over and over every couple pages. And it took me like a couple of reads to start picking up on the bigger and smaller, and like the weather, and like the tour, and like the gears or whatever in the electric vehicles. But then you have the whole backdrop of the dinosaurs and things going wrong. So I don't know. It's just a very spooky book. Like it's very cool. Anywho, sorry. Apatosaurus, we saw that right before Tim sees the raptors too. So and I thought it was funny
Yeah,
that they say that it prefers dry land, and you're like, instead of it's
yes.
like, is it a clone thing? Is that really how they are?
Well, no, but I think that's like I actually wrote that down too, because like I think this is actually a thing of modern paleontology. Is that like back in the day, people didn't believe that like those giant dinosaurs could support their own weight, so they assumed they must have lived like partially in the water. And I think it's
Uh,
been like a relatively recent thing. Like I actually think Creighton was a little bit like before his time on that. That they're learning it seems to be like no, these dinosaurs didn't spend massive amounts of time in water. Had evolved to a point where they could just support their weight. There's
yeah,
like
and
all kinds of crazy theories about Apatosaurus.
I think it's funny because we talked about that like in one of the previous episodes where Wu was like, maybe we should like re-engineer them to slow the dinosaurs down because people aren't going to believe that they can be moving like this. It would be really weird to see animals that huge moving that quickly and like doing all this stuff. But
Well, that's something I noticed from like the book versus the movie is that like even I would like I don't know, the T-Rex still seems slow in the movie.
yeah,
Like they
that's true.
talk about like how the T-Rex like silently like pounced on the goat and like that we never like that sounds like a raptor. That doesn't sound like the T-Rex. Like the T-Rex did things in the book that were scary. And like even when it's chasing the Jeep, like it's kind of like kaboom, 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 instead of being like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and even Ian's on the gear shifter too, so they're not going at like a top speed in the Jeep. They're just kind of like
mhm,
probably third gearing it along there. Um, yeah, I feel like I made a note that's Hammond's starting to get pissed at this point because things are really starting to go wrong.
mhm,
Because I think later on Woo's like, oh, I don't know if Hammond's basically going senile or not because he's like going between like really mad and like kind of like emotional about like the park and like kids, but he's starting to like. I was wondering if it's like his way of dealing with how insane everything is just about to unfold, or is he like at his age, or is this too much for him to do? Where it's like almost traumatic what he's going through at the moment. But yeah, he starts like basically losing his shit at this part of the book, I'd say.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, because even Mr. Arnold's like, we can't make them experience wonder. And he says that to John Hammond because John Hammond's got like the Willy Wonka slash bad guy vibes going on in the book. So it keeps going back and forth between the Willy Wonka wonder of like the guy in the movie, John Hammond, versus like,
Mhm.
okay, is this guy like the main bad guy basically? Because he put his grandkids, in completely in harm's way here, which is pretty bad. But yeah.
I don't think like John Hammond ever left the world of wonder that he built in his head before, even before the park was built.
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, I paid for this. This should work. He is like the primal Karen.
He even keeps giving the same speeches too, and was like, I've heard this already like a million times. But it
Mhm.
seems like Hammond believes it so in his core that he's just like, this is gonna work right up to the bitter end.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, then the boats are leaving the storm thing. Yeah, and he says he cuts the money. But then we get Nedry, right? This is where Nedry starts to really shine and start his plan. And we realize Nedry is the one that Dodson was talking to in that chapter.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is like the book does Nedry way more justice. Like he's still kind of gross, but like Nedry had a plan, and he even he's like, yeah, I'm gonna give Dodson the genetic material, but end this recording of him talking about it because we learned that whole meeting before Nedry goes to the island was just so Nedry could get him on recording, saying this is the plan.
Yeah, he's way smarter about it in the novel for sure. Because that makes more sense why they met. Although I know in the movie he gives them the money and everything, but like it's just kind of like it's so much more devious and thought out on his part that he becomes like a secret little villain. And it's another level of control, right? Like they make a point to say that they pushed Nedry into blackmail basically to get him to do this work because what they were getting him to do was way more than what he was supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
Um, so it almost like, not saying it justifies him doing what he did, but I mean, it opened the door for that, and it's just another level of control that they thought that they could take advantage of somebody and push them
Mhm.
into doing what they want, and it didn't work out, and it, fucked their whole island and park up, basically. Well,
Well, it's such like a big
helped.
corporation to bully like a contractor move. Like, it's like I've done some contracting gigs and like that's par for the course. It just seems like a lot of work. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny because in the movie, like you're so willing to like assume that like Nedry's just like kind of a bumblefuck and maybe just a tool of Dodson. And like even like the thing I keep thinking about is like when he drives through the sign and then he gets out and he just like spins the sign to see what direction it points. And like,
Yeah.
all right.
I
It's
love
like
that part. It's so good. I love it. He crashes through, then he spins it. It's like Russian roulette. Um, Cora, Cora's here somewhere. I don't know where she is.
I thought I heard a cat.
Yeah, I hear the cats. They're definitely starving to death. Uh, the West Indian lilac thing is pretty cool. What's
Yeah,
that?
and that's
What's that? I would like you to feed the cats if that's possible.
what the automatic feeders aren't working.
Yeah, we have. See, you know what? You can get your cats chipped, and you can have. Have you heard about that?
Well, I know, but is that like a thing when they get close to the feeder, it like
It opens up,
triggers it?
and it sounds like a good idea, but I just feel like after reading this, there's no way that it's gonna happen. You know?
I've heard of people with like cat doors, and they put like a thing on their collar, and the collar like triggers the door to open.
I heard that too. It's very cool. I mean, it sounds like it would be working on paper, but after this novel, I don't want cats destroying the planet because I think that's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Well, we get the thing where cats can let themselves in the house, but Crichton can't even chip a dinosaur. Like, what I mean? We're working on motion sensors.
Yeah, the cameras just didn't count all the cats. I thought it was kind of cool in the novel when they talk about Ellie finding out the West Indian lilac stuff, because I know that they mentioned the berries and stuff and they must be eating them, but it was just kind of cool to watch them connect the dots with like the gizzard stones, and then that's why he finds the eggshells on the ground for the velociraptors. And it
Yeah.
just kind of like was a lot more linear, where like you were following them discovering why the stegosauruses were sick, and then when they find the shells on the ground, it's just kind of like another oh shit moment, like the same as Tim seeing the velociraptor in the field. You just don't
Mhm.
see it coming for a second.
I only
Um,
also just connected the scene of Grant finding the eggshells in the movie to the book. I kind of forgot all about that scene.
yeah, I thought it was cool because he was like, and is it the lawyer? What's his name?
Gennaro?
Yeah, he's like, how do you know that's a dinosaur shell? And he's like, this is like flat, like this is a huge egg, and you can tell from the inside of these little markings. Like I just dug these up. Like I'm the guy who knows what the hell these are, basically. Um, and then Malcolm starts going off on chaos theory. I love when he's doing that. It's so interesting.
He just gets into like some weird spots where like he reminds me of like the dude from like Men in Black 3, where he's like, oh, maybe this will happen. You know what I mean? Oh, does it like means a lot of bad things for human life. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, come on, bud. Like,
I know he's really stuck on that whole like, oh, this is what I've been saying. It's the chaos theory.
yeah, well,
Um,
I think Gennaro literally, like, I think those characters exist to like oppose each other. But Gennaro's like, oh, is this sick Stegosaurus like part of your mathematics? And he's like, yes, it is.
yeah, he's like, it's all part of it. This is what I've been saying. Um, but yeah, then he drops the life finds a way line, and then they're like the raptor eggs, basically. Um, yeah,
But you
and
know,
then
like the part that's always left out about that life finds a way line is like it's like violently and sometimes dangerously or something, but life finds a way.
yeah, I think that he's such a cool character. But yeah, I mean, he's starting to become really preachy about the chaos theory, which is he's almost like a religious kind of figure because he only wears all black and he just believes in the chaos theory and it's the answer to everything. And
Mhm.
I don't know. It's kind of I don't know. It's like I said before, I've listened to this so many times now. I'm picking up on like these weird things. I'm like, am I making these things up at this point because I've heard it so many times? Am I reaching at something crazy? Um, but yeah, you talked about the breeding graphs for the compies before and how they're just starting to put two and two together because it should have a
Mhm.
spike every time they release them in the park, but you know, it's not, right? It's just the graph is a breeding graph, basically, is what Grant points out, right?
I Gaussian distribution is what
Yeah.
Arnold's like. Oh, it's a standard Gaussian distribution. And they're like, it shouldn't be. Like if you release them in blocks, it should be. And somehow I never figured this part out, but somehow like Malcolm's like manipulating the graphs from the car, even though it's like a laser disc and nobody's ever talked about a
Really?
keyboard or anything.
Weird.
Yeah, because they say like when you start doing the like when they're like when they do the dinosaur count, they're like, oh, you can send that to the cart, right? And they're like,
That's
yeah, no
true.
problem.
Got Bluetooth, 1990.
Maybe he drew a picture and showed it to like a camera or something, but he's like, Malcolm says like if it was like like if you release them like the way you said it should look like this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, math people do that shit. They draw on things. I'm sure we could tie it into some 90s tech or late 80s tech somehow.
He's got a
We'll find
fucking light bright in his car.
Yeah. It's like I found it on this graph here. That's when they start talking about the DNA having sex change possibilities from frog DNA and all that fun stuff. I thought it was funny that they were like, "Oh, did you have a rat problem?" And they're like, "Yeah," and like, "Bet it went away." And they're like, "Yeah, it did go away." And they're like, "That's why."
Yeah, they kind of play coy and all that because even like um Grant's like, oh, like I bet you had like, did you have any frog DNA? And like it's not until later because like Henry goes back and goes through it and is like, oh yeah, these dinosaurs did have frog DNA. Like they really
Yeah,
play the long game with their explanations.
I know. I still wonder how that works because, like, if you grew a dinosaur and you know what I mean, like, what,
Mhm.
like, how big are these dinosaurs when they're switching? because they're getting bred in their incubator things, and then they're coming out of the things, and then they're a little bit bigger, and then they release them. So they're changing after that at a certain point, right?
But also, there's another part of this where like they use radiation to go after the goat, and like the sexual. Well, I guess gonads are inherently
True.
sexual, so like it's like they got up in there, like you know what I mean. Like you think
Yeah,
they would notice if they went to like radiate a critter's crotch, and there was like different plumbing.
I know. I know. You would think that they might be like something looks a little funny here, but that's one thing I was a little bit confused about because I was like, I know that they say in the movie too, they're like, oh, just switch sexes, and it's like, okay, all right then. The dinosaur just did its thing in the park, and uh, yeah. Then I have Malcolm goes off on fractals, which I thought was really fun. Um, I thought it was they compare like one day in the life of like a small version of like the whole rest of your life. It's like you wake, you start your day, you do some stuff, and then you end your day, and it's like Jesus, like I guess so. We're getting deep into that, but I
Yeah,
know,
fractals are crazy.
yeah, it is really interesting. I'd like to actually read about them just for fun eventually, but
It
yeah, and
might
then
have been Stargate, but I think they actually talk about like fractals being like potentially like the closest thing to like a view of God.
interesting. It's fucked up. Look, we went from souls and we're back to God again. This is a deep podcast. This episode. Uh, and even when he says life is, I have this written down here. Life is not beads on a necklace, which was kind of cool because it's not
Mhm,
just like da 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 da.
mhm, mhm.
And he makes a point of saying that like any event can just really massively mess stuff up, and that's when the cars basically stop in front of the T-Rex pen. Um, and this is kind of getting pretty close to the movie. Like, I don't know. I really like the way that this starts to play out in the book. Like, the movie is obviously iconic, like with the T-Rex pen and everything, but the book still is pretty scary, I think.
Mhm.
It unfolds. And there's a little Rex, right? Like, he's somewhere around here.
Yeah, like he'll pop up later, but yeah, like I don't know, every aspect of this book, like it's funny because they are two very different things for me. Like it's just more. I feel like the Rex attack in the book is faster, again, faster than the Rex attack in the movie. Like it felt like there's way more shit going on. Yeah, I don't know if that strikes true with you, but
That it's faster in the novel, sorry, or the movie.
yeah, in the novel.
Um, um, yeah, it does kind of seem faster because I don't know, like I don't know, it's kind of weird because they're stuck in front of the pen, but they make it sound like they can see the ocean from where they are too, right? Because that's how they see the boats, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I was very confused. Like I've like, are the electric vehicles like how do they stop them to see the Stegosaurus, and they get back in and they start going again? Because they make a point to say that they can't start and stop them, but they did start
Mhm.
and stop them at the Stegosaurus pen. So I was a little bit confused at that part because I was like, they didn't make a point in the novel to say that they had stopped for any reason. They just said they
Mhm.
jumped out of the vehicles. So maybe if all the doors are open, they stop moving or something.
Well,
I don't
I
know.
think they were stopping at pens, so I think they just jumped out when they were stopped at a pen. But then they make a point to be like, well, like when the power's out, if the electric cars start back up, they'll drive away without them.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So I
it's
was
a little bit of a flaw in Crichton.
Yeah, it's not like a big deal, but after, listening to it X amount of times, you're like, wait a minute, but if they are controlled by that. Um, no, I thought it was cool that like in like the novel, the T-Rex, basically you don't see him, but it's presumed that he nudges the car off the edge of the cliff in the movie, but he like
Mhm.
literally picks up the Land Cruiser and like throws it into the trees, right? With
I think there's like the movie suffered A from the animatronics not being able to do that shot, and B like there's cutscenes, right? So you have like in the movie the Rex stepping on the car and pushing it into the mud.
yeah,
But then it cuts to Grant looking for the flares in the back. And so it feels like there's some time that's passed. Like, no, I'm not talking like minutes, but it just feels like there's other shit going on. So it feels like
yeah.
the Rex has been stepping on that car for longer than it probably has. Opposed to the book, like you're getting it more or less real time. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because Grant and Ian don't do anything in the novel. They just I mean, it's super brave of them to do stuff in the movie, obviously, but like in real life, I'm sure that they wouldn't get out of the vehicles because,
But they
you
did get out
know,
of the vehicles, didn't they, at one point? Because like Malcolm gets
at
chased
the
down by
end,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they don't try to save the kids at all, though. Like they don't get out of the vehicle until their Land Cruiser, the kids, has already been thrown into a tree and gone. And they think what Lex is getting eaten by the T-Rex, which was very scary because they were
In
like,
the
"Is it the girl? I don't know."
in the movie, the kids were way more likable. Like I don't know if I get out for those book kids either.
I know Lex is always like, "I'm hungry. What is this? This is boring."
Let's go play some pickle.
Oh my god, every time I hear that in the book, in the audiobook, I just laugh. She's like, "Put her in there, give me the heat." And he's like getting pissed and throwing the ball harder. But yeah, in the book, it's pretty crazy. Like even when they're getting thrashed around in the Jeep, like they make a point to be like, "Yeah, Tim's mouth is full of blood. Lex's face, like she's unconscious and covered in blood." And you're like, "Whoa, these kids are getting completely fucked up here."
Mhm. Yeah, you can't get past like the kids getting absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, like they get it pretty rough. I mean, I know they do in the movie too, but you at this point you assume that Lex has been eaten by the T-Rex basically because you have no idea if she's survived. Um,
It's like funny
they
that
just
like
bury her.
Jurassic Park is like, oh, it's supposed to be like it's every Jurassic Park thing has kids in it, so it's kind of like a kid young adult thing. And then the book is like these kids might be getting eaten right now. Like,
Yeah, I heard somebody talking about how them having kids in all of them, and it's like by having the kids in it, it makes the horror that much scarier. Like there's a lot more to lose by having the children. Like around these animals because it really ups the game of like anxiety and like being nervous listening or watching this unfold. But
mhm.
yeah, the kids get like it's pretty bad. Like Tim is like, you don't even know what happens to Tim. They just say that the T-Rex, grabs a Land Cruiser and like chucks it and he just sees palm trees and then he's out. You don't even know what happened to him until later on. But yeah, and Lex
And
sounds
Regis just like
there.
runs away in his loafers.
Yeah, the fact they made a point to say that he pisses himself, they really amped up
And
like how scared he is.
yeah,
Which was really cool because in the movie when like Gennaro just like is like, "Oh Jesus," and he runs out of the Jeep, you're like, okay, that's fair. But in the novel, yeah, Ed Regis, he just keeps saying like, he's like he's so scared that his shorts are like little flags or whatever because he's shaking so much. And then he pisses
mhm.
himself, and then just leaves the kids. Crazy,
It
poor
makes
kid.
the line in the movie all the better where it's like when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, the Spielberg stuff is pretty good. But yeah, I really liked it. It was really cool. And even Tim has his night vision goggles so much more in the novel.
Mhm,
Uh, it's cool that they make those like basically part of his character for the remainder of the novel. Like they're a really
mhm.
important tool. It's almost like a video game. Like he has to have those to like continue, or he's gonna
Yeah.
die without them. Basically,
I will say one last thing with the Ed Regis thing. It's so funny to go from him being like the scaredest he's ever been to like remember like a couple chapters before he was talking about like this is where he goes to unwind.
yeah. He's like it hurts, doesn't it? Now he's like literally pissing his pants there. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I even thought I made a note of this that Mr. Harding is in this way more than the novel or than the movie.
Yeah.
He's like an actual character in the novel, which is cool.
Yeah, no, and it was interesting to hear them talk about like of course he would want to be like on the island, like the first veterinary, like the person writing about like the veterinary science of this. Like it's very much like a more tangible person of like or I don't know if it's more tangible. He's carrying a common thread that like Henry Wu's carrying about like I want to be famous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like everybody knows working there that even though it's dangerous and it's crazy, to be the first to do it is going to be monumental in history and in their
Mhm.
fields. Like they'll be super respected. Um, yeah. Side note, while this is happening, Nedry has left with the embryos, right? From
With a Gillette can. I wrote that down.
yeah, no Barbasol here. And yeah, he takes the Jeep with a rocket launcher, which is pretty crazy. That's the only Jeep there, so
It's
nobody can go
hilarious that he
anywhere.
gets in the Jeep and he's like, oh, that looks like a rocket launcher. And then
Yeah,
like drives away.
he's like, "Fuck it, I'll be right back. Nobody's gonna notice." Because it's literally supposed to take like under 10 minutes for him to get in and out and get this done, right?
Mm-hmm. Crichton did a
So
really good job of building like the image for me. Like maybe it's because I've seen the movie, but like him talking about like him opening the can and like and like frosting up and stuff like that. Like Crichton does a really good job of like those details.
yeah, I thought that too. I thought that he made it really visual just from the way he described it, because it made it seem like so much more cool than, it could have just been like a boring thing because he's just taking the dinosaur embryos. But the way he describes taking them all out, yeah, I'm glad that kind of carried over into the movie because when Nedry like pulls up the thing and all like the dry ice and stuff comes out, it looks so fucking cool.
Feels like a
Um,
heist.
yeah, it does. It feels like a heist. We're at the heist part of the book now, and everything's going to hell
Mhm.
because the phones aren't working because Nedry tells him he's only going to use the lines going out, but all the internal lines are being used as well.
Which, if you were born after 1995, people used to use the internet over the actual telephone lines.
It's awful.
It's called dial-up.
Yeah, dial-up sucked so much. And that's when they kind of are like, okay, the fences are off in the park now because I think Nedry, I don't know if he puts two and two together that it's gonna like that there's people in the park and the fences are off and he doesn't care about their safety, but like he just needs them off so he can like basically put his hand on these you know, high security electric parts to get to where he needs to go faster and have shortcuts. But by doing that, he ends up cutting all the electrical fences off, which is, I I know I don't think that he actually meant to do that in
I,
hindsight.
I'm not in the movie. He doesn't turn everything off because there's a line where they're like Muldoon says to Arnold, like, "Oh, did he turn off the raptor fences?" And Muldoon goes, "Oh no," or like Arnold looks at his really like, "No, they're still on." And
Yeah, I
he's like,
remember
"Oh
that.
yeah, even Nedry wouldn't turn off the raptor fences."
But in
So
the
and
book,
it wasn't
did
until
they
like they
say that?
reset the whole system that like all the fences went down. And like I think that is what happens jumping forward. Because remember there's this thing that comes up where they like get everything working again, but everything's running on. They find out everything's running on like a secondary generator, and they forget that everything's running on a secondary generator, and then the secondary generator goes down because it's like out of fuel.
Hmm.
And like Arnold's like, how did I fuck this up? So I'm
So,
not exactly sure at what point the raptor fences went down.
well, they just say that the fences in general are off right before the T-Rex gets out in the book.
Mhm.
Um, he just says, "I just have written fences are off so Nedry can get through." Underestimates animals because he never actually leaves the control room. That's what I figured because he doesn't really understand how dangerous they are. Even when the Dilophosaurus is like, when he has to deal with the Dilophosaurus coming up to him, he doesn't. He just takes it for granted. He's like, I'm on a schedule. Like I got to get out of here. I don't have time to fuck around with dinosaurs. And it's like, dude, there's a dinosaur hunting you. Literally, dinosaur hunting you. They really um you know, take it home the fact that the control room people don't go into the park because he's a prime example of not respecting that whole nature thing out there where he's being hunted by a dinosaur and doesn't even care because he's on his schedule to get his money. Like it's like his greed is at its height there and it gets him. But
That's one of the
they,
best lines in the movie when he's like looking at the Dilophosaur and he like throws a stick and it doesn't do anything. He's like, all right, you fucking know it. And he's like, I'm gonna run you over when I come back down here.
yeah, I love that. It's such a great part of the movie too. It's so memorable. It's Spielberg, man. Um, I just have written down here, kids get fucked up. And then I put
Dude.
thought Lex got eaten question mark. Uh but yeah, I felt like it's funny because they're like, oh, does like Hammond know that the kids aren't back yet? And Mr. Arnold's like, I'm not telling John, like he's not coming down here to like boss me around and shit. So I thought
Mhm.
that was kind of funny. What do you think of Nedry's death? Like let's just jump into that.
Dude. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I gotta go to the washroom or I'm gonna die.
Okay.
What'd you get for me,
Anyway.
Cora?
Okay, so I just came here for a couple minutes to say my little 2 cents about the book, which is not much.
You haven't read it.
Precisely, I've not read the book. However, Matt and I were cleaning today, and he had the audiobook on speaker, and so I had to listen to a little excerpt of the audiobook. And I was really impressed. So the part that we listened to was when, what's his name again?
Who?
The guy who steals embryos?
Nedry.
Nedry? So he had stolen the embryos and was in the Jeep driving away, and he comes across the dinosaur. And this is the moment where the dinosaur spits in his face, blinds him, and then tears open his guts and then puts its jaws around his head. And the description of that made that whole part of the book/movie way different, because when you're watching it in the movie, you're just like, oh, there's this dumb guy who's getting attacked by a dinosaur, ha ha ha, and it doesn't really hit. But when you listen to the description of how he's feeling while it's happening, it was bananas.
So do you think now you're like, do you think you'll listen to the book on your own?
No, but not because I don't think it's interesting. I do think it's interesting. I just don't listen to audiobooks.
Mhm.
I don't know when I would ever have the time to do that. I mean, I really enjoyed listening to it though. So maybe I will. Who knows?
I was gonna say you should catch up and like you can join the next podcast.
Yeah.
Because it'd be interesting to have somebody that's completely new to. Because like Matt and I talk about that a lot, where we're like pretty biased because like we're so ingrained in the movies and like the lore of it. It'd be nice to actually maybe have somebody that's like a bit fresh too.
Yeah, well, one thing I did really appreciate about the book was how well the author was at describing things, and describing things using, rather than like stating someone's emotions, he was able to describe the situation, and through those descriptions, you got to understand how the person was feeling, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. And I'm only basing this off of this one excerpt that I listened to, but I was kind of blown away by how well the author was able to describe this moment. Like
Mhm.
when he talked about how he opened his eyes and he could only see like blurry dots or whatever, and then he came to the realization that, oh my god, I'm blind.
Mhm.
And then he felt like something on his belly, so I guess I can't stand up any higher.
Okay.
Somebody get Cora a phone book.
I just thought it was really cool. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say, and I'll give the camera back to Matt.
All right. You don't want to hang out for the next unboxing?
What is that?
I got the McDonald's toys right now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's been working. I've been going to McDonald's way more than I should because they got these Jurassic Park toys.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, check
No.
this one. This is one I already opened. It even flaps.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, for a McDonald's toy, I was pretty impressed.
Yeah. McDonald's toys used to be really good. Maybe they're coming back with some good stuff. But I'll let Matt do the unboxing with you because I don't want to steal his thunder here. But maybe what chapter are you guys on?
They don't number the chapters. It's really painful. But essentially, the part you just talked about is like where we just stopped.
Okay. And is it in the first third, second third, or third
Well,
of the
you're probably almost exactly like maybe just shy of halfway.
Okay. We'll see. I mean, listening to an audiobook while painting was a pretty good idea, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's also a world where you could just skip to that part and just listen to it. You know what I mean? Like from there, but
Yeah, that's true. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, thank you for listening to my little thing. Goodbye.
you're always welcome. You can't hear me.
Beat it.
We need to come up with like a Cora segment. Like it's like our trailers, but it's just Cora.
He
Sorry
just
about that.
pops in, dude. Check it out. He used to have this Dilophosaurus watch. It just
That's
says
wild.
spitter on it. I know. There used to be an actual Dilophosaurus and the head would flip up. I used to wear it to school in grade 4. Can't find the Dilophosaurus part of it.
Mhm.
Anyways, where were we? Nedry, yes. She's right. It's fucked up. It's disgusting.
Dude, and like as somebody that's not a horror slash torture porn person, like it's like I don't know, and like maybe I have like a slight phobia about being crushed, but him talking about the jaws on his head are like
Yeah,
pretty
because
pretty crazy.
he's like, it describes him getting picked up, and he's like, oh, I'm only getting picked up because I'm in the giant, I'm in his jaws. And he's like, the last thing he's thinking about is like for a quick death and wanting it to be over, basically. It's fucked. He's holding his
I
guts.
I think that's the only chapter too that or the only death that we hear from the perspective of the person that's dying.
Oh, interesting.
Like I
What
think
was
we see other people die, but let's call him like he's like the number 4 person that's died on the island, I think.
so messed up? His death is insane. And I
Yeah.
like the way that they describe the venom. Like it's a lot more like spit instead of like the black tar, like in the movies, which I thought was interesting. Um, yeah. Basically, this is going off the rails. You T-Rex just throwing Land Cruisers around. You got Nedry getting killed by Dilophosaurus right now. So basically, all the control has gone out the window. Uh,
Mhm.
and so we don't know what happens to Tim and Lex at this point because Tim's still in the Land Cruiser. But if I didn't know, if I didn't see in the movie, I'd assume Lex is dead because they kind of make a point to say they don't know if the T-Rex is eating her or not. Kind of seems like it. And then, something weird happens to Ian, very similar in the book. He just gets like the T-Rex basically knocks him around with its head, kind of like, and he just
Yeah, like the kids are MIA. What's his name? Regis is MIA because he like ran off into the wilderness.
fucking Regis.
The Ian got fucking launched into oblivion, and Grant got kicked into oblivion.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
nobody got out of that situation unscathed.
No, it was bad. It was bad for everybody, except for the dinosaurs. Hey, side note, do they actually say like what is the animal that they hear a thud and go between the two Land Cruisers before the T-Rex gets out of the pen? Like, what is it?
I always thought that that was the smaller Rex.
That's what I thought too, but then why didn't it, did
Well,
it
because
just
the
run
smaller
away?
Rex is bigger, is afraid of the bigger Rex.
Right, that's right. That's
So
right.
I thought maybe like it got out, like maybe even it's what tripped the fence to make the bigger Rex think to get out. But also it could have been a
Oh,
raptor. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it seems like
Yeah, that's
raptors
true.
just run around this park.
That's why I was like, it must tie into some reason that the T-Rex would know that there's no electricity in the fence suddenly. Because he would, I mean, yeah, we could say there's no hum or he could sense the electricity, but maybe there was another animal that ran through it or whatever at that time. Yeah. So basically, Hammond is eating ice cream and stuff with Wu after this, right?
Mhm.
And Wu makes a point to be like, this guy is unhinged right now because he's not making any sense. And they're talking about like, you know, everything is not good. And Hammond's going into rants about how, you know, if you want to save people and you have like a cure for cancer or whatever, or a cure for anything, it's not going to get rolled out properly because everybody wants to make money off it, or they'll stop it from coming out because it'll affect other people making money off a disease existing. Gets into some interesting nitty gritty about like pharmaceuticals and stuff again, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like an interesting topic, and like it's funny. It's like we're slightly removed from it because like being Canadian with like
Yeah,
universal health care, it's like not as much of a thing as it is in the States with like their sorry if you're American, but the fucking disaster down there that is healthcare.
yeah,
Um, and not even like that's not even commenting on like current situations.
yeah.
But like there's always been speculation that like a big conspiracy theory is like, well, the cure for cancer's out there, but big pharma and like big pharma and big pharma. And like there's totally some basis in that where like people have people have documented big pharma like actively trying to do things and just make them more money.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the older I get, the more I'm like, yep, that sounds about right.
Well, even like,
Unfortunately.
remember a bunch of years ago when that ding dong kid just bought like it was like an HIV or a cancer med or something, and just jacked the price up like 400 times?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know that.
He was the same kid that bought the Wu Tang album. Like Wu Tang like released a single album, like it was like there was one copy of this album, and because he was like a pharma millionaire, he bought it, and then people were like, Wu Tang was like talking about breaking into his house and stealing it.
That's a
And then he
crazy
ended up going
side
to
story.
jail for, dude, it's a crazy story.
That's
I'll send you a
insane.
video. Yeah, the kid is like definitely like an incel, like ding dong.
I swear, the older I get, once I get to 50, I'm just gonna be disappointed in everything except for like science fiction. Um, yeah, that's fucked up. Um, Pretty much that's where I mean, like, kind of ends for us for describing what's happening in the book at this point, because
Mhm.
then we'll get to like Tim waking up and what happens after all that later. Because I figured it would be fun to end here because it kind of shifts gears the book after that because it's more like survival mode instead of like incident mode that's happening because you
Yeah.
still have Ellie and Dr. Harding and like the lawyer on their way back on the side roads back to the control room and stuff. So
Yeah, I think it's a weird thing to say, but I think Crichton has like laid out his opinions of
yeah,
like various genetic things. And now we're just in it for let's see some dinosaurs fuck some shit up.
yeah, I think the stage has been set.
But the more I think about it, the more I think that like the dinosaur, like the raptors are in the cage are like unhinged from like the way people treat them. Because like if we get these wild raptors running around, how come they haven't been picking off workers left, right, and center? You know what I mean?
It's an interesting idea. I think that you're probably right. I never thought about it, but it would make sense. It would make a lot of sense because
Mhm.
they're used to being fed by like the machine and all that stuff. So they don't even know what it's like to really hunt. So they're probably pent up and insane, like you're saying.
Mhm. And we see it like it happens in the movies too, like especially in Jurassic Park 3, when they have that whole weird, like, oh, I stole your egg, here's your egg back. Like, we cool, bro? Like, you know what I mean?
We got to get the 3D printed cavities for that episode so we can make the noises.
Dude, I'm so close to buying a 3D printer. Like, it's like, and like that might push me over the edge.
Do it.
That, and I want to make a Commander Cody like cosplay suit.
That would be amazing. I'm still waiting to like, and you can't just name a clone Cody and not give them more of a backstory. I need some more, you know?
Well, that's why I'm like a little intrepidous of like the next Star Wars. Like when we get in there, 'cause that's the one where Cody takes a shot at Obi-Wan.
I know he's like, hmm,
Blast him!
the poor lizard he's riding,
Yeah.
um, which looks like a dinosaur, strangely.
Mm.
You know what? It's weird. After like watching the original Jurassic Park when we're kids, all the way up till now, we've seen like the dinosaurs change so much too. The way that they
Mhm.
really do look, like even in the new Jurassic World, they have feathers. Like they look quite a bit different now. I'm wondering what things are gonna look like in the new Jurassic World Rebirth.
Yeah, man. I mean, like that's the thing when everybody's complaining about like the Egyptosaurus or the Spinosaurus. I'm like, how long have these things been there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this could be a second or third generation theoretically.
That's true. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't know. There's all kinds of weirdness because it's like, okay, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, it makes way more sense for this to run like adjacent to Jurassic Park. Because, like, if they were there the whole time, like, if they screw up a dinosaur, it's not like they're making, like, a breeding pair. Like, it's not like, "Oh, like, we
Oh.
need another one," you know what I mean?
Well, I
So,
was
like,
wondering,
would
like, how would they not have escaped the island yet either if they're if because they make a point to be like, because Wu's just like he hasn't had time to at this point in the book because he's like mentions like he wants to go and check the DNA for the frog thing, but he's like questioning all the other changes they made, and it's like, are they licensed? It was it called licensing or yeah,
lysine
like, are
deficient.
they actually deficient? Like, did that even really work? Or like, he's questioning a whole bunch of things. So it makes you wonder if these dinosaurs in Rebirth have any of that stuff, or if it never worked from the get-go, because of the cloning stuff they were doing.
But the other crazy part is, like, there's at least one Spinosaur, there's a Mosasaur, and some other probably Spinosaur. They're just like swimming around the island. Like that
Yeah.
seems treacherous. Like
I'm interested to see what the deal is with the T-Rex too, because it looks pretty cool in the trailer. I like that it has all the stripes on it. It reminds me of like some of the toys.
yeah, well, like I haven't. It might still be a T Rex. At one point, they were throwing in like Allosauruses and stuff too.
Really, that would be fun.
Yeah, like I think you see an Allosaurus in the third Jurassic Park movie
I think you do. I haven't seen that in so long.
because they're like going down the water, and there's like an Allosaurus like pops its head up, and then they find like the
Oh,
Spinosaurus poo, and then
right.
they dig
I
the
do remember
phone out
that.
of the poo.
I remember the Nokia ringtone. Is it Nokia? Like da
Well,
da
it was like
da.
it was like for his company. It was like their jingle for like the
Right.
Kirby Paint and Tile Plus at Westgate.
I love that you remember that so clearly. I think I had that as my ringtone for a while because I always
Mhm.
remember like they hear it and they turn around, the Spinosaurus is just standing there.
Yeah.
It's such a hilarious reveal.
Mhm,
Um, I can't wait to get to that movie when we talk about it. I can't
mhm,
wait to deep dive into all the separate movies because like even though I don't love part 3 of World, it makes me like part 2 a lot more of World, like Dominion. Like
mhm.
I think I maybe I didn't give it enough credit because I don't know, I really hated the third movie. Jesus.
It's just like I said, it's not even a Jurassic. Like we thought we needed to get off the island, but we needed the island.
Hey, at least we're on a new island in this one.
It's interesting. Like I don't know, like the really exciting part is like finding those parts from the books that made it into different movies. Like we talked about the girl being attacked on the beach by the compies, which happens in the very first part of Lost World.
Right.
Um, we're gonna get to it. We haven't gotten there yet, but there's the whole them ending up in the aviary in Jurassic Park 3, which is from this book.
Oh. Yeah, it's gonna be fun to unpack it all because I have never gone so in depth with one novel. I've listened to this so many times now. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, I was telling Cora the other day, like, I've heard this section that we just talked about so many times that I know off by heart now, like the parts in order that are happening. Like, it's
Mhm,
ridiculous. But it's so interesting because it's really fun. Like, it's not like I'm listening to like, The Secret Garden or something.
mhm.
It's Jurassic Park, so it's smart science fiction. There's dinosaurs. Bennett is obsessed with dinosaurs right now, so I like can't escape them. I'll be like listening to the book at night, putting him to sleep, and then in the morning, I like go to his little playroom and there's dinosaurs there and there's dinosaurs on the chair. Miss Rachel's talking about dinosaurs on the TV. I'm like, am I losing my mind? There's just dinosaurs like all over the place. But it's awesome because they're real. That's the crazy thing.
Mhm.
Although I've never
Ha-
seen dinosaur bones. Someday.
Have you have you tried showing him Camp Cretaceous?
He's not really into like busy cartoons yet. Like
I was gonna
Miss
say.
Rachel is just like us. She's like staring at the screen and being like, "Can you say hat?" And he's like, "Ah, yes."
I wasn't sure because a friend of mine, like, they had a kid and they tried to show the kid Camp Cretaceous and they were too scared.
It is scary. I think Camp
Mhm,
Cretaceous is good. I actually really liked it a lot.
mhm.
It had the vibe of the first Jurassic Park. And I like that it ties into all the stuff happening in the Lost World. Like I don't know how far you've seen into Camp Cretaceous. Have you seen all of it?
No, I got to the point where they start getting into like the weird biodomes, like the snow biodome. I remember really well.
Well, they actually have some of Jurassic World Dominion play on screen in Camp Cretaceous from a different perspective. Like they see them come to the island with the helicopter and you see the
Yes.
T-Rex. So you saw
Yeah,
that
yeah,
part?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought it was really cool that the kids are still there and like they're trying to get off the island and like they see that from anyways, we'll get to that eventually, but I
Yeah.
like that there is a cartoon series that was respected the movies enough to do something like that. It's pretty cool.
So, like, this is a question. This is something I don't know about Jurassic Park, but is Chaos Theory is that out yet?
I think so. There's some folks, I can't remember their name. They contacted us a long time ago when I first put out the teaser for our Jurassic Park series, and they're throwing up stuff right now for Chaos Theory, so I think it is out. Pretty sure it's
Because
out.
like, if they're throwing out McDonald's toys, like there's got to be something out already.
I think there is. I think there is. There's got to be, right? Got to be. I
I don't
should
know.
know this, but I have no idea.
Tell us in the comments.
Somebody tell us. So are you gonna unbox some treats today?
You want to see that?
I
I don't
want to
even know
see
what
it.
this is. Is that a pterosaur? Don't know what that
Those
thing is.
are. They look like the ones from Jurassic World, the first one,
That's
because
what I'm
they
saying.
have
So
like.
it actually Dimorphodon is what it
That
says
was
on the
my
side.
next guess. That's cool. I actually want to unbox that. It looks kind of nice.
Well, so I've been buying these up. So I got this one too, which I've already opened, obviously, but I've got the box for it. I've got another one that's I'm gonna keep pristine.
Oh, that one's nice.
Yeah, this is a Petrodon.
Ooh, those are really nice boxes. I would get
Yeah,
like
like,
two of each.
well, I'm just like I've just been going to like through the drive-through and just like, hey, can I get a toy? Although I went to the Walmart one the other day, and the girl gave me a toy as soon as I bought it, and then they put a toy in the bag too, so it was like 2 for 1.
That's cool of her.
Yeah, so then I've also got this. Oh my god, this is the one I can't say. The Pachycephalosaurus or whatever the heck.
Yeah, he has the powers of the swords.
The Pompadour, the one with the horn.
Oh yeah, Jurassic or the Lost World reference there. I
Yeah,
respect that.
I don't
Elvis.
know. There it is. Yeah. But yeah, let's open
Uh,
the Dimorphodon. Oh, and they come with these cards, which you'll see in the Dimorphodon.
I really like the cards.
Funny enough, they have them in I don't know which side we're looking at, in metric and imperial
Interesting.
for like
Just
the
in case.
heights and stuff. So it's like a pretty generic. Like I don't know. You remember when this stuff just used to come in plastic bags?
Yes.
They're trying to cut back on the plastic.
Those are way cooler. They look more
Well,
collectible too.
oh, there's something else in here. So like this is like a bag thing I just pulled out, and then there's 2 cards in here.
There's a chicken nugget in it.
Oh, it's the card. It's kind of cool actually. And then there's like the instruction book for the wings, because like these wings actually flap. So this goes together exactly like the Petrodon that I opened up before does. So
I feel like those are real. I thought you were gonna find a chicken nugget in the bottom of the box or something.
no, I did get chicken nuggets the other day.
I knew it.
So it's like multiple parts.
Dude, I'm gonna buy these. Can you hear Bennett?
Now he's getting excited to hear dinosaur toys going on.
Cora's going to rescue him. Man, I
Okay.
want to get those and leave them in the box. They're so fancy.
Well, that's why I'm kind of like, just whatever I get, I get. And if I get doubles, then I'll keep them in the box. So there's actually like a little pocket, see, in the edge of the wing.
Yeah.
So then it meets up with like in there. So like, is this upside right? Yeah, this is right. So they go. It's kind of a pain in the dick, to be honest. Mhm. And then the top. There we go. I got it. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So it goes exactly together, and then because they fit in that hinge part, they flat.
It's funny because if you look at the box and then you see the toy, it looks like the box is gonna be like some insane Hot Toys thing. But then you open it, and I like that though that it's such a like a simplified version of it.
Well, they gotta be right. Like, who knows how many of these things they popped out of a mold, and if they were like jagged tooth and stuff like that, like they'd be so much more
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah, and
But
they're oh, Bennett's losing it.
well, I guess we'll have to call it there. We've come full circle though. We've talked about rebirth
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah. I
birth
mean,
part and the re part of this podcast.
we covered a lot. It was a huge chunk of the book. I was gonna say, since you have your card there, I thought it was kind of neat because I have some of the old ones and some of the artwork from the movies.
Oh,
Man, they're so nice because it's like the original concept art, and they have like a picture of the artist who did it, and like
dude, that
just a
is
close up.
fucking cool.
Yeah, I think I want to collect all the old original cards because I have so many of them. And for some reason, I don't know how, but I have the official souvenir edition of Jurassic Park, but from back in the day. And it's just got like, you know, 90s goodness. It's like welcome. And there's all these cool behind the scenes production stills and stuff. And there's actual real dinosaur digs and stuff in it. So yeah.
Dude, we should just go to Joggins or something for a podcast.
That would be funny. I'd be down for that. But yeah, Bennett's probably gonna eat my face now, so
All right,
you'll have to
bud.
see us out.
Thank you for watching. This has been another Slush podcast. I'm not Sully. I ain't Swall. But thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all those places. Goodbye.